This year, the Shanghai municipal government launched a vigorous campaign to crack down on Halloween activities, enforcing a citywide ban on all forms of Halloween cosplay without discrimination. As a result, the cosplayers are forced to keep moving from place to place to avoid detection. At the same time as the first anniversary of late Premier Li Keqiang's passing approached, Hefei issued a notice to turn off all LED screens, prohibiting any public commemoration of Li Keqiang. Looking back 10 years, it would have been hard to imagine the situation today. A decade ago, people in China could still post memes of Jiang Zemin on platforms like Weibo and Tieba, and even give Xi Jinping nicknames. Who would have thought that 10 years later, even the freedom to dress up for Halloween or to honor a former premier would be out of reach? These 10 years under Xi Jinping's leadership feel almost like a surreal dream, marked by a rapid decline in freedom of expression. How did China get to this point? Hi, I'm Dong Xiang. Welcome to Dig Into China, where we take a deeper look at China to reveal insights you can rarely find anywhere else. In this episode, I'll take a look back at the decline of freedom of expression in China and explore how Xi Jinping has gradually dismantled it step by step. To many ordinary Chinese, the decline in freedom of expression might feel like it happened all at once, but in reality it's been a gradual, boiling frog process. Over the past decade, Xi Jinping has used a range of strategies to steadily chip away at the boundaries of free speech. Let's break down how this process has unfolded. From the beginning, there were clear signs of Xi Jinping's dissatisfaction with China's public discourse. Even before taking office, he had emphasized at a party school event that the party alone should have the authority to define its own history, claiming the CCP's right to control its narrative. This laid the groundwork for his future effort to regulate expression. Once in power, Xi quickly set his agenda to tighten control over speech. Upon taking office, Xi Jinping immediately emphasized the need for the party to exert absolute control over the media. To realize this goal, he initiated a purge of influential online personalities. In 2013, during his first year as president, the CCP launched its first major crackdown on prominent public intellectuals, spearheaded by Lu Wei, who later earned the title of China's Internet Czar. On August 15, 2013, Lu Wei introduced a framework known as the 7 Bottom Lines at the China Internet Conference. These 7 principles include compliance with laws and regulations, protection of the socialist system, safeguarding national interests, respecting citizens' legal rights, maintaining social order, upholding moral values, and ensuring the authenticity of information. This framework aims to establish a so-called moral benchmark for influential online figures and later become known as the Lu 7 Points. Not long after the introduction of the Lu 7 Points, many individuals labeled as public intellectuals experienced the CCP's severe crackdown. A prominent case was Xue Manzi, who was arrested for soliciting prostitution. Recognizing that not all cases could be categorized solely as prostitution-related, the party simultaneously rolled out a judicial interpretation regarding the online rumors alongside the Lu 7 Points. This regulation stipulated that sharing a rumor 500 times could be deemed defamation and result in criminal charges. Shortly after this law was enacted, 2 well-known online figures, Qin Huohuo and Li Ercaisi, were arrested. Certainly, one could argue that some of their remarks did involve spreading rumors. However, it's evident that this regulation was applied selectively. During that time and even now, many pro-party influencers routinely disseminate rumors on Weibo and other platforms. In fact, it could be said that 99% of their remarks are misleading or false, yet they have faced no repercussions. This law effectively became a convenient excuse for targeting these public intellectuals. Additional prominent figures like writer Mulong Xuecun, entrepreneur Li Kaifu, economist Mao Yushi, and lawyer He Weifang, though not immediately jailed, faced account suspensions and silencing. This quickly fostered an atmosphere of fear across the Chinese internet. The CCP's strategy extended beyond simply silencing public intellectuals. It recognized that suppressing opposing voices alone wouldn't be enough. They needed to cultivate their own opinion leaders. They pursued this goal actively. For example, the influential Patriotic platform Observer Network launched its WeChat and Weibo accounts in 2013, entering the public eye. Similarly, the well-known patriotic accounts Xia Kedao and the People's Daily was established in 2014. That same year, Zhang Weiwei, now a prominent government-affiliated commentator, released his first short film, China Confidence, marking his emergence on the public stage. In 2014, patriotic blogger Zhou Xiaoping also gained attention after receiving praise from Xi Jinping. While public intellectuals were being suppressed, a golden age for patriotic influencers emerged in China, with Xi Jinping's support evident behind the scenes. By this time, Xi had effectively gained control over online discourse. Within this foothold established, he advanced his agenda further. On one side, he implemented continuous internet cleanup campaigns to remove undesirable content, while on the other, he restructured the central framework for public opinion management. In 2014, the central government set up the Central Cyberspace Affairs Commission. At its first meeting, Xi Jinping outlined its mission to use the principles of online communication to promote the party's main narratives, encouraging positive energy and create a clean online environment. Simply put, its purpose was to shape public opinion to favor the CCP. At the same time, owing to Lu Wei's effective performance as Internet Czar, the Cyberspace Administration of China began to gain significant importance. Xi Jinping restructured the CAC, which had previously been a minor entity under the State Council and nominally managed by Premier Li Keqiang. After the reorganization, Xi placed the CAC under the party's direct authority, significantly increasing its power. As a result, Lu Wei's personal influence expanded rapidly. As a result of these actions, the traditional fragmented landscape of public discourse in China was dismantled. Previously, matters related to public opinion involved numerous agencies such as the State Council Information Office, the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the General Administration of Press and Publication, the State Administration of Radio, Film and Television, the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Public Security, and many others. However, after these reforms, responsibilities were greatly consolidated, with the CAC emerging as the main authority directly accountable to Xi Jinping. From that moment forward, Xi Jinping established administrative control over public discourse in China. With power increasingly centralized, he was finally able to pursue his next goal. The earlier management measures had only restricted what key opinion leaders could express, leaving the voices of ordinary citizens largely unregulated. In 2017, a new method of controlling the public was introduced with the enactment of the Cybersecurity Law of the People's Republic of China. This law included two key components: a real name registration system for Internet users and the imposition of responsibilities on platforms for handling violations of speech. Together, these elements effectively eradicated any remaining space for freedom of expression in China. The real name registration system is quite straightforward. Once users are required to register their identities online, any criticism of the Communist Party or reports against officials become attributable to individuals. This significantly heightened the risk involved and simplifies the process for authorities to apprehend dissenters. In the past, only prominent figures were concerned about the repercussions of their statements, but with this law in effect, ordinary individuals also began to fear speaking out. carefully considering the possible consequences of their words. This ultimately established a chilling effect on the general populace. Simultaneously, another provision highlighted the responsibilities of platforms, an impact that may have been underestimated. Before this regulation, the legal responsibilities of platforms for addressing subversive or explicit content were ambiguous. Consequently, platforms adopted a rather lenient approach to content management. In reality, the real name registration system and the platform responsibilities were outlined in previous regulations, such as the Internet Information Management measures issued in 2000. These measures mandated real name registration for Internet users and required Internet service providers to monitor user-generated content. However, the enforcement of these regulations was lax. In 2012, the National People's Congress passed a decision to enhance online information protection, reiterating the two previously mentioned points. However, because one was labeled as a measure and the other as a decision, they lacked the necessary enforceability, leading to ineffective implementation. In 2013, platforms like Weibo had only about 100 moderators. However, the landscape shifted dramatically with the introduction of the Cybersecurity Law, which made it the legal responsibility of these platforms to prevent the dissemination of so-called inappropriate content. This obligation forced the platforms to significantly expand their moderation teams and strengthen their content review processes. For example, Weibo quickly began hiring more moderators in response to the new law. While we often criticize platforms like Zhihu and Bilibili for their frequent content censorship and post-deletions, the root issue lies not with these companies but with the Chinese Communist Party and this specific regulation. Following the law's enactment, the platforms were required to comply or face severe consequences. The law explicitly stated that if they failed to remove certain offensive content, they could face criminal charges. Thus, when individuals in China express themselves online and encounter account suspensions, the underlying cause can ultimately be traced back to this regulation. By this stage, Xi Jinping had effectively constructed a framework for controlling public discourse. At the central level, he solidified his grip on expression by establishing new committees and reorganizing the National Internet Information Office. In terms of key opinion leaders, Xi targeted and suppressed dissenting voices while promoting patriotic KOLs to assert his narrative. On the grassroots level, he utilized legal regulations to manage major platforms, thereby indirectly overseeing ordinary citizens and limiting their ability to speak out. It is evident that Xi Jinping's ability to undermine freedom of expression in China was not a random or impulsive act. Rather than merely declaring a need for speech control and demanding immediate compliance by suppressing dissent, the process was systematically and carefully orchestrated. It involves the establishment of legal frameworks and unfolded through gradual encroachments on our freedom of speech. Some laws and actions that appeared inconsequential at the time ended up having significant social repercussions. Two intriguing points arise from this situation. First, Lu Wei, the so-called Internet Czar, was instrumental in building the entire network surveillance system. However, after the framework was completed in 2017, Lu Wei was investigated for corruption that same year and was subsequently sentenced to 14 years in prison in 2019. Another noteworthy point is that while Xi Jinping was advancing patriotic education, he also integrated his personal agenda into it. The propaganda under the framework of speech control not only focused on patriotic themes, but also substantially elevated Xi's public profile. For example, during Xi's visit to the United States in 2015, the amount of content available on Baidu related to his trip was 20 times greater than that from Hu Jintao's visit in 2011. As Xi's image received extensive promotion, Premier Li Keqiang seemed to fade into the background of public discourse. Subsequently, Xi Jinping did not halt his effort to tighten speech control. A series of regulations and actions continued to surface. New laws were introduced to restrict the editorial rights of online influencers, ensure that the state media remained loyal to the party, and implement measures like online real name verification. The red lines for suppressing public intellectuals grew ever tighter. In 2017, Yuan Tengfei faced a domestic ban. In 2021, Wu Yuesanren was also silenced. And more recently, the moderate blogger Ma Dugong had his accounts suspended, among others. This system of speech control developed a considerable momentum, leading to increasingly strict measures. However, I believe our growing perception of heightened speech regulation is not only due to the shrinking red lines in China. The feeling of oppression is also driven by the emergence of another force within the framework established by Xi Jinping, the public. After Xi Jinping initiated his speech control measures in 2012, the impact was immediate. The public transformed from being mere victims of oppression and indoctrination to actively participating in the system of control. A wave of patriotic enthusiasm took hold, with many individuals voluntarily engaged in self-surveillance. This led to the emergence of numerous online patriotic vigilantes. Under the influence of the Communist Party's propaganda, these people began to self-police, launching online attacks against various bloggers and reporting what they deemed unpatriotic actions. For example, in 2020, Luo Xiang was targeted by widespread harassment and ultimately stopped posting on Weibo due to the relentless pressure. The impact of this movement isn't limited to public intellectuals. A considerable number of patriotic supporters are also targeting ordinary dissenters online. While these attacks might not always carry legal weight, they exert significant moral pressure, effectively positioning these individuals as the fourth force in the speech control system. With this additional influence, patriotism has become a form of political correctness in China, further stifling dissenting voices. If this trend persists, we could be approaching a new cultural revolution, as this force mirrors the behavior of the Red Guards from earlier times. Fortunately, since 2022, Chinese public discourse has experienced a significant turning point. Amid the management of the pandemic and a declining economy, there has been a marked polarization in public opinion. On one side, the increasing number of individuals are stepping up to challenge the Chinese Communist Party's censorship and speech control. Notably, figures like Teacher Li have emerged to address the shortcomings of traditional media coverage. Additionally, a growing number of prominent voices from within the Great Firewall have come forward, including Wang Ju, Cai Jing, and the recently active Ray Chenggang, all of whom have ties to CCTV. This has led to the formation of a dynamic network of influencers reminiscent of a new media matrix. Whether you like them or not, an increasing number of people are willing to take a stand against the Chinese Communist Party. Additionally, platforms like TikTok and Bilibili are no longer what they used to be. Quirky and sarcastic videos have started to appear. If the CCP does not manage certain events effectively, the comments are likely to spiral out of control. Meanwhile, as economic hardship deepens, some nationalists are veering towards more extreme actions. After acting as moral enforcers and targeting perceived dissidents and intellectuals, they are now turning on former allies. Even figures like Hu Xijing and platforms like Dao, once seen as loyal to the state narrative, have come under fire. Some have resorted to provocative stunts like Ironhead, who notoriously urinated at Japan's Yasukuni Shrine. This intensifying division is now fracturing Chinese society. To conclude, here's my perspective. During Halloween in Shanghai, many people still took to the streets in costumes, even under potential pressure from authorities. Were they all rallying for freedom, democracy, or free speech? Not necessarily. Some might have been, others not. Regardless of their motivations, this kind of expression deserves our encouragement and support. Sometimes promoting freedom of speech and democracy doesn't always involve grand slogans. Challenging oppression and pushing for freedom and democracy is a gradual process, one step at a time. As discussed earlier, Xi Jinping's approach to restricting our freedom of speech and democratic rights has been a gradual, methodical process. Likewise, our pursuit of personal rights must start with incremental steps. It's unrealistic to think that under the current regime, major opinion leaders could openly become critics of the platforms like Weibo, could mirror the openness of Twitter or YouTube. But we can still work toward weakening the ideological grip, the fourth pillar of the control system over public discourse. Challenging the Communist Party and advocating for democracy and the freedom of speech should be viewed as honorable, not shameful. It is essential to reject the unwarranted suppression of freedoms, like the ban on cosplay in Shanghai, which represents a misuse of public authority. We must applaud the courage of those who don costumes to resist governmental overreach, showing that individuals who oppose the Communist Party and seek democratic freedoms stand united and are not alone. I aspire for a day when this community expands and reestablishes itself as a mainstream force in society, rendering pro-communist actions a moral liability and elevating up opposition to the Communist Party to a position of honor. In doing so, the public will cease to be enablers of the speech control system and instead unite in resistance against it. This represents the initial step toward achieving freedom of speech and is vital for the democratization of China. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please like it, drop a comment below, and hit the subscribe button right here. It really helps YouTube suggest my video to others. I'll be back with more content soon. Until then, be well.